episode of the Black Heights Podcast. I'm your host, Antoine Wade, and we have another On Their Journey podcast. Tonight's guest, we have Miss Lauren Reeves. Lauren is a software engineer at Postmates, Inc. She is a University of Michigan alumni. She's passionate about creating innovative solutions, emerging technology, and incorporating user experience development and engaging more minorities in tech. Yes, we need a lot more minorities in tech. She's based out of Silicon Valley area, the Bay Area. I met Lauren on an airplane ride on the way back from Chicago to San Francisco over the Christmas holidays. My daughter was sitting in the middle seat and I was in the aisle and Lauren was in the window. And she was so wonderfully gracious with my little one who probably bothered her the entire flight. So during the flight, Ari and Lauren had many conversations along with myself, and I got a chance to learn a little more about her and what brought her out to the Silicon Valley area and what she does in her career. And I am so thankful for her joining me on the podcast tonight. So, Lauren, tell the people how you're doing, guys.
I'm good. Got home from work not too long ago, but I'm good.
Awesome. So, folks in the chat, you know how we do this. Let's make this interactive. Looks like we got the chat screen on YouTube as well as Facebook. It looks like we have Mr. Clark Wade in the house. We have Tiffany Wade in the house and Tamara Wade in the house as well. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the podcast tonight. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the video if you like what you see. And also, let's make this interactive. So tonight's theme for the podcast is asking the right questions. That's right. It is asking the right questions. So before we jump into the questions in the interview, we're going to do a round of a lightning round of this or that. So, Lauren, are you think you're ready for these questions?
I think so. We'll see how these go.
All right, let me get my timer going here. Let's do this. Let's see what we got here. Okay, timer. Let's go. Boom. It looks like Mr. Wade's timer's going. Okay, so let's start. Rock or country?
Rock.
Pop or reggae?
Reggae? Reggae. Let's do reggae. If I had to choose one, reggae.
Okay. Classical music or rap?
Wait, say that again. Classical what?
Classical music or rap?
See, this is hard because I was a violinist.
You got to choose one.
But, okay. Classical music.
Okay. Dancing or cooking classes?
Dancing classes. These are very difficult. Like, these are really consistent.
Concert or play?
Concert.
Cards or board games?
Cards.
Roller coasters or Ferris wheel?
Ferris wheel. Easy.
Dress or pants?
Pants.
All right. Turkey and cheese or roast beef sub?
Turkey and cheese.
Cake or donuts?
What's good?
One or the other.
I know I'm taking this more seriously than I have to, but cake? Cake.
Okay. Vanilla or chocolate?
Chocolate.
Action movies or dramas?
Dramas.
Romantic or documentaries?
Romantic.
Televisions or books?
Books.
Romance novels or spy novels?
Spy novels.
Mark Wahlberg or Shamar Moore?
Shamar Moore.
Farmhouse
Sure.
kitchen or gallery style?
You said farmhouse kitchen or what?
Or gallery style kitchen?
I I guess farmhouse style.
Okay. Um, rural or suburban?
Hmm. Suburban.
All right. Would you rather have a farm or just an acre or two?
You said a farm or an acre or two?
Yep.
I would say I'm imagining myself like on a farm, like with my cows. Or I could have like a house with like a nice backyard, like this acre, like couple acres, and then these events. Um, but I feel like farming is, the smells, acre,
Okay. Drive or fly?
fly,
Plane or boat?
plane,
Ireland or Hong Kong?
Hong Kong.
Africa or Asia?
Hmm, Africa,
All right. Okay. LA or Atlanta? And that's the last question.
LA.
Okay. Okay. We have some more people in the house. Hey, Anton Walker. Hey, Mina James.
Hey, me.
Dominic Bedner is in the house. Hey, guys. Thank you so much for joining. All right. Let us get started. So, Miss Reeves,
Yes.
tell everyone your journey.
Sure. I guess I'll talk specifically about my journey in tech. But growing up, I always was a like super nerdy kid who loved math and science.
Hmm.
Um, I just like loved doing puzzles, logic problems, just trying to figure out like small solutions to these weird brain teaser type questions. And eventually, I end up after like years of doing Saturday programs, doing um, being admitted to the College of Engineering at Michigan.
Hmm.
And at the time, I didn't know what type of engineering I wanted to be. I thought, well, maybe I'll be a surgeon because they get paid a lot, or an anesthesiologist because all they have to do is just put people to sleep. But after organic chemistry and barely passing, I realized that I did not want to go that route. But all engineers are required to take a um, intro to coding class. And so I had decided, okay, let's just see what this is, give it a shot. And I ended up loving it. There was just something about like figuring out the best solution to get somewhere, and like this euphoric high that you get when your code works, that
Oh,
I just could not shake that feeling. And so, it's been years since I've declared. And so now I'm a software engineer, but it hasn't always been like sunshine and rainbows. There's definitely been periods of doubt, like times where I might have failed a class a couple of times, and family was just like, "Are you sure you still want to do this? Like, are you sure you still want to be in this field?" Or like feeling like, going from always being in really smart classes and being um, like one of the brightest to, someone who's very average. And so like feeling like, do I still belong? Am I truly smart enough to be here? Um, there's definitely been like peaks and valleys within my journey, but it's so far been super rewarding, and I most of the time look forward every day to going to work. So it's been cool.
wow, that's awesome. That's a wonderful story. What's up, Story? You're Black Conservative. And I see a Grigsby. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for joining the live stream tonight. Um, that is, you talked about, some trials that you faced, like, failing a class or two, right? What is it that really caused you to dig in, Lauren, right? Going to a university like University of Michigan, which is a very, very academic powerhouse within the
Mm-hmm.
U.S. And majoring in such a tough major, like you were a computer science major, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what made you stay the course, even though you may have failed a class or two?
Yeah, I think some of it was just having the right people around me. So it really helps when you have like a group of people who are super encouraging or also trying to do the same thing. So some of my friends who happen to be on the call right now, like they also are engineers, and just being a part of a community of people who are going through the same thing definitely helps keeps pushing you forward, because it's like we're all going to get through this together. Part of it was just like seeing the bigger picture, or like knowing just like the potential of what was out there, right? So I think around that time, or maybe a little after I graduated, like the movie about like what it's like working at Google had came out, where you had saw people who were like biking to work and like they did their laundry, and but like we heard about those. Like when you have friends who intern at those places, you know that that's definitely achievable and that's out there. And so I think like having like knowing what you're working towards also definitely helps. And then I think part of it's just like determination, being like, you know, having faith, just trusting that things will work out. And at the same time, like I said, there was that great feeling of, wow, I built this and it works. And even though the things I was building was getting more challenging, still having that root good feeling of like I'm doing something that I really enjoy definitely makes it easier to keep going.
Wow. No, that's wonderful. I think a powerful thing there is having a support system, right? People who you were in class with, you know, your family members that's encouraging you to continue to stay the course, right? And not only that, you had a goal. You saw the big picture. You know what you wanted to do, and staying the course with that too. That's amazing. Talk about your job today as a software engineer. What is it that you do? You know, tell people what your day to day is typically like.
Yeah, it's funny because I think I'm employed to be intelligently confused. Most days, I actually spent a good half of my day just asking questions to various people. And so I've started a new job a couple of months ago, but at both places that I've worked, I have a reputation of just like asking questions all the time. And so a lot of my day is just like asking, not to swear, but like a shitload of questions. But my day to day, it looks like I wake up. I usually journal in the morning. We'll have a bowl of oatmeal. We'll walk to the BART, get on the train, go to work, check emails, have a quick stand up, and then kind of lay out what I'm trying to do for the day. I might have a couple of small meetings where I'm trying to get more clarification on a bug that needs to be fixed or a new feature that I've been requested to implement. And then I'm just coding, coding. I'll usually take a break around lunch. We all have this very hard stop time at 12 because that is when they bring in lunch. So everyone gets up, and I usually am eating with my team, and we're talking about the weekend, the Super Bowl, if the earth is truly flat, something. Seriously, these conversations range. Just like we'll joke around, and I'll get back to coding. I might take a walk or get a coffee with a friend sometime in the evening, and then I leave. I will say the difference, though, now that I'm at a startup, is that my hours don't look like the typical 9 to 5 or 8 to whatever. I do come into the office kind of late. Like my day starts officially around at 10 a.m. I usually will leave around like 6:30, or maybe a little earlier if I'm trying to go box. And then it wouldn't be weird for me to log back on later at night to like look at a bug or something comes to my mind. I'm currently on call, so like if something happens, I actually have to get off this call and fix it. And so like, and that doesn't stop, you know, for a full week. People can hit me at whatever time of day if there's like a big problem that needs to be looked at. So.
Oh. So it sounds like there's a lot of flexibility there as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
So um, Mina James said, "Go blue, baby. Teamwork makes the dream work." Absolutely. Uh, Miss Tamara Wade has a question. This is my sister. She
Yeah.
said, "Software engineer, amazing. The tech and engineer field is male dominant. What has your experience been like in that field as a female?"
Yeah. It's been interesting. I think it's interesting more so because I'm young in my field and I haven't completely, it's not just like male female thing, but I think sometimes I'll work under men who will view me more as like their daughter versus their like someone reporting to them. And so especially because I'm very friendly. So sometimes they'll be like, oh, it might be a little difficult. I'll take care of it. I was, I've been babied
Yep.
at certain parts of my career. Which is cool if you don't like to do work, but I actually am trying to learn. So I'll be like, oh, I'm trying to like figure this out. So I'm more than happy to take this on. Um, I've also had to learn though to be more assertive in certain meetings.
Mm, mm,
I'm a very like friendly, joking person, but I think, or kind person, but I think when I go into meetings, I have to become a little bit more serious just with
yep.
my character. So that's been interesting. I haven't, since I've been working, I haven't dealt with too many people who are like, women aren't that smart. I do remember in school, though, there's been incidents where people just like, don't want to work with me because, oh, it's the only black girl in here. So I just get overlooked. Or when I was declaring, for example, I remember one of the advisors was like, "Are you sure you want to do this? It's a really tough path," and they didn't ask other people that question.
Yep.
So that was a little different, but I think I have to have more confidence in a way just when I walk into a room, just to be very sure of myself and to not doubt myself. I
Yep.
try not to apologize really if I don't know something, like someone catches things. I always go, thank you for that, for
Mm,
catching that versus saying sorry.
mm-hmm,
So I think it's like little things where I'm I'm more assertive and I feel like sometimes I have to be like more dominant.
mm-hmm.
But I think that's the biggest thing I deal with.
No, and I must say, as a person who maybe just has a little bit more years of experience over you, Lauren, those are things that we all struggle with coming into a workforce, right? I don't think it has
Mhm.
anything to do with, at least my personal opinion, I don't think it has anything to do with being a male or female. It's just really understanding the culture and where you fit
Mhm.
in, right? Being
Yeah.
assertive is something that we all need to do to have a voice within our workplace a lot of the times, and it's hard sometimes. It's sometimes you have to walk you think you have to walk a fine line, but once
Mhm.
you've established yourself and your credibility, then you can start to push for more. And then not only that, something that you said was have confidence, and confidence is going to come with the experience that you gain, and the confidence is going to come with the more challenges and the more problems that you solve, and when you start to get more credibility and things like that. We have quite a bit of few number of questions that are coming in.
I know my parents
Look at
are
that,
about
look at that. And I have one in here. Julia Reeves says, "Go, Lauren." um, SOBC, he said, "I worked in a mid-sized engineering company with over 50 engineers. There's only one female engineer." Yes, a lot of engineering. I've led teams, software engineers, and I was a software engineer. And you're right. A lot of the times it is male dominant. And I would assume, especially being in Bay Area, working for a lot of the startups, they're still male dominant. That's the diversity challenge that we're facing today. Mr.
Yeah, and
Anton
then
Walker. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go
oh
ahead,
no,
Lauren.
I was gonna say I also think that I do more research before I say things, just because I've been in roles where I've been interrupted a lot simply because like I am like a young female and like this guy would talk over me countless times. And so I've like I remember leaving that meeting and someone literally apologizing for him. Like, I'm sorry, he shouldn't have been so like just kind of like abrasive when you were talking. But I, it's just like sometimes I always double check my facts before I present too.
Yep. And part of that is just being prepared for those kind of meetings, Lauren. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're going to come across people who just don't have the proper professional etiquette in some of these meetings. And, it's something that shouldn't discourage others from talking. And, leaders who have people like that on their teams, they need to, work with these individuals to make sure that they understand how to listen. And not only that, give people the appropriate time to speak whatever they have to say. So I've had people like that on my teams, and a lot of times you just got to check it. Mr. Anton Walker said, "What programming language do you currently use?" So I'm guessing he's asking the programming language that you code in.
Yeah. So my current language I use is mostly Python. I do mostly backend development.
Yep.
My previous company, I was doing mostly Java. I was actually trained in C++. So I think another thing about being an engineer is that making sure you have a good root in your fundamentals, and not being afraid to pick up a new language when you have to. Before joining this job, I actually had no experience with writing Python. So it was just kind of like just jumping into that. Same with my previous one. I was studying C++ in school. They were like, well, we use Java. And I was like, oh, yes, I'm using Java. But I currently, to answer your question, I do use mostly Python. And if I try and help out on the front end, they're using TypeScript with a React framework.
Got it. Anton Walker, I hope that answers your question. Miss Lisa Reeves says, has your faith influenced your self-determination to work in this? Is it what you expected?
Well, Mom,
that's a good great question. She got you. She got you real good on that one.
She did.
Mom, good question.
I would say so. I don't think I knew what was in store for me when I first started. Like, I don't think anyone does when you're young and you're picking a career. I think you just say like, wow, this looks cool. And you decide to go for it. I mean, I heard that work was flexible, which it is. Like, I work remote every now and then. But I didn't know everything it encompassed as far as like how much learning I have to be doing constantly. Like, literally, I have notebooks of every day I'm writing. I'm learning new stuff, whether it's a new process, a new way to deploy, or if it's like new tricks with the language, or how to roll back a migration on a database. Yep. I'm literally learning every single day. And the type of just career this is, I don't think you'll ever be a complete master of, like, you'll never know everything. Like, new languages come out all the time. New frameworks come out all the time. Different companies have different ways of doing the exact same thing. So I didn't know I had that in store, and it kind of is different from, like when you're studying, you can say like, oh, I'm an expert at algebra. I know algebra. When it comes to coding, you know a lot, but you also start to know how much you don't know. Yep. And that was definitely something I didn't know I was walking into. But regards to my faith, there was times, especially like when I was in the middle of my job transition, or getting assignments at work where it was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to complete this. Like, I honestly don't know. Like, I'm banging my head on the wall, or what's my next move? Am I supposed to be in this role? Kind of all those questions that are bigger than myself that I had to that I realized I had to find within a different source. And so I definitely think that faith has played a big part, and it just, my faith continues to grow as I progress through my career. But yeah, definitely.
Wonderful, wonderful. Um, we have a lot of questions coming in the chat, and that's good because the theme of this is asking the right questions. People are asking
Yeah.
the right questions, which makes my job a lot easier. So this is awesome. We're going to jump to the interview, and we're going to get back to some of the questions. But for anyone considering a career in technology, right, what are the three most important things that they should do to apply for a position, Lauren? What was your experience like getting into the tech field?
Yeah, I think it comes to a couple of things. One, your network is a huge, huge, huge
Mm,
thing that matters. And so going to meetups or career fairs or being in some sort of organization
yep.
is a really big thing. Definitely use your network. I would say like being involved with student orgs got me into my first job for sure because I was in a leadership position and I was able to meet. Um, I had access to recruiters that I wouldn't have access to if I was not in those organizations. Um, and from there, like when I moved to the Bay, it's just been like being really involved with work, but also outside of work, meeting people and building my network, which helps lead me to where I am right now. So definitely your network.
Mm,
I would also say, hmm, I mean, learning, I think your knowledge base is just like a given. Like you should definitely have experience. Unfortunately, like the tech industry is one of those industries that expect you to have experience before they hire you. So
yep.
working on side projects. Um, but I think knowing how to, like, not being afraid to ask questions or
Mm,
look stupid is another big thing.
mm,
Like I had said a little earlier, I have a reputation at my current job and at my previous job of always asking questions. And so it could be something as simple as like, what does this acronym mean to why are we doing this? Um, what's the best way? And I found that by asking questions, people see that you're engaged.
mm-hmm.
You can get like a more direct answer or find out someone is just as confused as you are. Um, and then it also forces you to learn, which is kind of like the two big things, like asking questions and constantly learning. So I have seen someone in here had said like how hard is Python to learn.
Yep.
Um, it's it's not about like it's actually a very easy learning curve compared to other languages, but the point is that like I learned it. You have to like make time to do small things on the side, and I think by doing those, it kind of helps you stand out. And so by asking questions and by trying to do things yourself, you're setting yourself apart, and by saying like, look at this resume of things that I'm doing.
Yep.
And I also think being you is very important. Like, I understand the fact that I'm a Black female within software engineering in Silicon Valley, and I try and use that to my advantage in standing out in a room. Um, by looking different, people are already aware of my presence, and so by being very presently myself, it definitely puts me like if I do things well, it's just like, wow, she's standing out and she's performing. And
Yep.
so I think by just being yourself and being, bringing your whole personality to all that you do and help building your own personal brand, I think that definitely helps as well.
No, I think those are some wonderful wonderful points. And this is what I heard, guys. I heard, network. You have to continue to network. It's the most important thing that you can do to stay employed. Not only that, to be successful in your career. Not only that, what Lauren said was to not be afraid, guys. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I know a lot of the times, and I struggled with this early on in my career. Where I didn't want to raise my hand. And, I may have missed the boat because I didn't ask the right questions. And I thought I knew, and I didn't just want to be that guy that seems to bother people by raising my hands. No, it is important to ask questions. Now, you don't just ask questions all the time by raising your hand. Some of the stuff you can come to, especially if it's in meetings, should be coming prepared for, right? You don't want to, get to a meeting and say, what is this meeting about? Because then you're going to embarrass yourself, right? But asking the right and appropriate questions at the right time is certainly something that we should be doing. And not only that, I think what I took from your last 2 points was taking initiative, right? So a lot of that is you have to self-study, you have to put yourself through a test, right, to learn different things, and that's going to help you stand out from others. And the last thing was authenticity. You have to remain authentic, right? You can't be anybody else. You be yourself, show your personality. And if you're doing great work, of course, you're going to excel because people are going to see the authenticity. And when you're authentic, that shows confidence, and it's actually a magnet for people. And people, become very attracted to people who are authentic. We have so Jim, your question got answered. Dominic Bedner had this question: how do you see the future of tech evolving, particularly as it relates to for people of color? Very good question, Dominic.
Wow, damn, great question.
Yeah.
How do I see it evolving, especially for people of color? Okay, I'll start with evolving. Tech is going to continue to be very integrated within our lives. I know there's a couple of movements where it's like we use tech too much, but the way things are going, it's just going to continue to make our lives a lot more comfortable, a lot more convenient, right? Like you see with like Uber and Lyft, how they completely, and they're going to continue to change industries. So the same way that Uber and Lyft has changed, like the vehicle industry and Airbnb changing, like the, I guess vacationing or housing industry, that's going to definitely continue to be ruptured. I think right now is a great time for minorities in tech because there are all these like initiatives to get more people of color within work. Like there's a lot more, like we want more inclusion, we want diversity.
Yep.
So I think now's a great time to be someone who looks different in tech simply because that's like what companies think they need, whether and some genuinely do, and others are like, well, yeah. I mean, they all need it, but some more authentically believe it than others.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's going to hopefully like keep going. I don't know, like it's definitely continuing to make our world a lot more connected. Showing more of your life experiences is going to just continue to go. Like, I mean, as you can see with this live stream, as you see with like people sharing their lives on social media, I think people will start to see a lot more of the human experience that's very different from theirs. And I think I feel like people of color are starting to take advantage of that in some ways, and I think more and more can be done to take advantage of that. But I think it's going to just make us a lot more connected. I think slowly we're starting to infiltrate more rooms. I think it should be happening faster,
Yep.
of course, but it's definitely happening. But yeah, those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I would agree with all of those thoughts. I see the tech industry continuing to evolve and cater to everyone, right? It's going to be a lot more inclusive because of the diversity and inclusive the path that companies are on right now to diversify their company and make their companies more inclusive, because that starts to cater to the rest of the world in the US and particularly. And for people of color,
Yeah.
I think there's going to be an influx of more people of color into tech, because there are so many initiatives that are out there to get more people of color within tech, whether that is Latino, whether that is African American, whether that is more Asians and things like that.
Mhm.
So let's move on. One question that we have in here is: have you experienced imposter syndrome? How have you dealt with it? This is from J. James Gist. Imposter syndrome. That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand it, but I'll let you answer that. I'm assuming that's a question about somebody being somebody who they're really not. So, but go ahead.
Well, I think imposter syndrome can be looked at it at two ways. I think you can do it like the way you said, someone being someone they're not. But I also think of it from the aspect of like, am I in this room that I truly belong in? Do I really belong here? Am I smart enough to be here? And yes, I deal with that all the time. Not so much anymore, but there's definitely like hints of it. I think it's only natural for people to compare themselves to others, especially when you work with other people. And
Yep.
so, like, you kind of see, like, wow, this is someone who I really respect as an engineer. And look at all the things they're doing. Am I really capable of doing all that? You know, like, especially when you haven't solved all the problems that there is to solve. So there's times where, especially when I was first starting, where it was like, I don't look like any of these people. I am very new in my career. I don't know everything. Am I truly smart enough to be here? You know, like some of the people who I was working with at different points in my career had more degrees. Like I've worked with people who've had their master's degrees and I only had my undergrad. And so it's just kind of like, oh, well, there's obviously must be smarter than me because they have a master's and I don't. But I think having like, well, one, expressing that in just like a very politically correct way to your manager as far as like seeking feedback, like how am I doing? Like what are your expectations for me? I think that kind of helps alleviate it. So like when I started my new job, I had asked, I said, what are your expectations for me or for anyone who joins within the first 3 months? Like by that time, like what do you think I should have accomplished? And at that time, like I had taken notes of what they said. And then after 3 months, I had looked and I was like, okay, I've achieved all of this and more. So obviously, like I'm doing what they expected to me, or at least communicated to me that they expected. Also, always keep receipts. but um, but yeah, so I was just like, okay, that's one thing. Also, it's nice, like on my current team, there's another female software engineer, and we were both really excited because we both had said like, oh, it's nice to have another girl in the room. Sometimes it's a lot to just be the only one. She also expressed to me, she said, I remember she had said, I'm very good at talking myself into rooms that I don't belong in. And I thought that was funny because I said, well, they wouldn't have let you in if they didn't think you belonged here. But I think like having someone on your team who, you know, roots for you is another great way to kind of like deal with the imposter syndrome. Also having friends who celebrate your victories. I think that's like another big thing, or other friends who do the same thing you do, but at other companies and like talking about their experiences. I have like a really good, I have a couple of good friends at other tech companies, and we've talked about like how much we make, like what it's been, our experiences have been, like what we're working on from day to day, things that stress us out, and like kind of seeing that we all have similar thoughts is kind of reassuring, like, okay, I'm not the only one. Either we're all dumb or we're right on track.
Yep.
So I think like those are good things. But yeah, I've also found that like just having a good relationship with my engineering manager is like super important for me, because I'll say like, this is what I'm working on. This is what's frustrating me. Do you have any advice? And going back to not being afraid to ask questions, I find the more I ask, the more I know, and the more I know, the less time I spend confused. And so I'm more busy working than worrying about like, am I smart enough to be here?
Yeah. No, that's wonderfully said, Lauren. You know, the part that you talked about was asking your manager for feedback. I think that is very important, but not only asking for feedback, but asking for, you know, what are key performance indicators, right? And that is what it is that you should know at a certain point in time within your role, so that you can measure that as a ruler for how you are doing or not, right? I think that's very important. I just remember when I came into my, when I started my career as a software engineer, and the first thing I did was ask my manager what it is it's going to take for me to get promoted. And, you know, he laid it out And I was able to achieve that within a year and a half. And then, that's the same thing for my next promotion. And next, that happened in 9 months. And before you know it, it happened in 4 months, right? These are questions that you should be asking in your professional career that will help you continue to move up and get to the next level. I think that's
Yeah.
very important, that people should really take notice in within this conversation of, if they want to continue to move up, you have to ask the right questions, and don't be afraid to do that, right? Um, I tell people all the time in our training in Black Heights is, guys, if you want to continue to move up, just ask people the right questions, right? Ask them what it is that's going to take, help you get promoted. Ask
Mhm.
people to be a sponsor. You can't just ask and um, don't perform. You have to be a high performer, but also at the same
Mhm.
time ask. And a lot of the times you shall receive.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
talk about uh, what are areas you think, as a group of African Americans, we can do to diversify corporations. I know there's a lot of initiatives that companies have. Google spent 300 million since 2015 on diversity initiatives. You got Intel spending around the same on diversity initiatives. You have companies like
Yeah.
Black Heights that's just working on building leaders and managers to help companies with diversity initiatives. What is it that you think African Americans can do to help increase diversity in corporations?
Yeah, I think all those initiatives are fantastic.
Hmm.
I also think that doing more like referrals is like something that we kind of forget about. Um, yeah, like I know like right now at my job, also if you want to go work for Postmates, we're hiring. But we get like we get paid to tell if someone we refer gets hired,
Hmm.
but not only just referring like one person, but encouraging other people to do more referrals for women or people of color. So we
Hmm.
had a training about how just like unconscious biases, and even when it comes down to like the recruiting and bringing people in, some of your coworkers they might not know someone to refer, but even just kind of encouraging them, well, just do you know any people of color or do
Hmm.
you know women? And so sometimes it's not the first thought they have, but just like reminding them, like, you all probably know other people.
Hmm.
Um, Also, I think part of it is like just getting super involved with the community, with like volunteering and teaching other people things that you know. So, like when I was in school, I did a lot of tutoring, um, mentoring, and then even now I was able to get like since I've been working, I was able to get involved with an organization out here, teaching more people about tech, but like more of the fundamentals. So there's a lot of like boot camps that teach like JavaScript, but not everything teaches algorithms, and so that's something I've always been really passionate about. So taking time to like teach others about that, so they can just like be more familiar with something that's not as easy to access.
Yep.
um, I also think just like sharing stories of where you are is also really important too. I
Mm.
think when people are young and they're aspiring, like, oh, what do I want to be? They think about what they see. So if you
Mm.
don't see like a lot of people in your field who look like you, that's not going to be something you necessarily think about. Like a lot of everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people think, oh, I want to go into entertainment and sports, which is fine. Like, some people are super talented and like that lifestyle is cool, but also, um, I don't think people always know the benefits of like working in technology or like how fun your life in tech could be. Like
Yep.
I,
Yep.
the fact that last year I was able to, like travel solo for 2 weeks in Spain and Morocco. And then I was able to like take a month off between jobs and I was in Europe. Um, and even some of the cool things that I get to work with and build, I think if more people were kind of just aware at a different age, like, oh, this is just as viable as a path. Um, and this is something like that I just didn't know was an option. I think that also can help bring more. I mean, it's a hard question because there's different parts of the pipeline that you want to impact, right? Like you can
Yep.
do like how are we treating people once they're in the office? I think retaining is one thing. There's also, like how are you getting through school? I mean, that's another part of the pipeline.
Yep.
And there's also like when do you even join? Like how like at what age are you excited? And that's somewhere you can help out too. You can contribute in, I'm teaching or I'm trying to inspire. You can help with I'm just trying to motivate you to finish, and
Yep.
then helping with now that you're here, how do we keep you engaged? And so I don't know, like picking one of those three avenues definitely can help out in any way.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the avenues that we're taking is, for the ones that are coming into corporate America, seniors in college, juniors in university, and the ones that already are, within corporate America and want to continue to move up. That's what our focus is. But I think one of the biggest things that I'm enjoying that we're doing is bringing the exposure to wonderful people like yourself, right? That has a story, and they can see a relatable face of someone who went the route of, hey, I want to go the traditional route and going to school, working for a software company, and what a wonderful life you can actually live, right? I've gotten the opportunity to live across multiple states and multiple countries, and share those same experiences with my family, and it's absolutely wonderful. And not only that, you make a lot of money.
Yeah,
People are
yeah,
surprised how much money you can make, especially in the Bay Area, even though it's expensive, going into a tech world and going and working for a corporation, right? I know a lot of the times entrepreneurship is where most people want to go, but that's hard. That is
yeah,
absolutely hard. I can tell you that by just starting my company in July, and we're just getting things going. But it is a hard task, and not only that, you don't know when your next revenue stream is coming in, so you can't just put all your eggs in the basket at one point in time and say I'm going to become an entrepreneur and think it's going to work right away for you. It takes time. It takes capital and all this other stuff to build a product or build a service to your liking that's going to be provide value to people. So
yeah.
Mr. Dominic Bedner said, excuse me, what are good entry points for everyday folks to join the coding wave, I believe?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I would say that it depends on what your interests are. I'm going to talk about two specifically, but if you're more so like, oh, I like the idea of building websites and going that way, I would say maybe learning HTML, CSS,
Mm,
and some JavaScript is like one way to go if you're really interested in I guess like web design and that type of avenue. If you're really into data, I would say doing more with Python or MATLAB or R.
yep,
Of those, I would say Python is probably the most friendly, at least from my experience. And it's like very, very useful and as a very attractive language to know. A lot of jobs just like the fact that you have scripting language
yep,
in your tool belt. And so from there, there's so many different tutorials online that are free. There's a lot of projects that they'll say, hey, try and make this, and they'll give you instructions so you can learn how to make it yourself. So I think those are super helpful to start off. Is just deciding, do I want to do more like data and like machine learning, that type of way, or am I trying to build sites? And so if you're trying to go the site way, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you can't go wrong. I always suggest people to learn plain JS and not a framework,
mhm,
simply because frameworks, I mean, everything compiles down to basic JavaScript. And so if you understand JavaScript at its root, then you can move throughout different frameworks versus um, picking one. I like to think of frameworks as like, I don't know, a house maybe. And so, and so if you only learn how to build condos and someone wants something that's not a condo, then you're out of luck. But
yep,
if if you know JavaScript itself, then you understand, okay, I know how to build rooms and I understand, the overall structure of what a house looks like, then you can adapt to build a condo versus, an apartment building. So,
No,
yeah.
that's a really good analogy. Dominic, I hope that answers your question. Anton Walker said, "Do you think the augmented reality and virtual reality developer wave has passed or just emerging?" Ooh, I would think that it's just emerging. Go ahead.
I
I'll leave that to the
definitely think
engineer.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely think that it's just emerging. Um, yeah, there's still so much potential in that industry and so many things that we haven't done yet. It also hasn't really been brought to the masses at an affordable price yet. The same way that when planes first came out, flights were only available for like the super, super rich. And then eventually they just kept innovating and found ways to make it affordable. And then it was something that was accessed by everyone, and seen as kind of like this breakthrough thing. Like, oh my gosh, flying across the country, that's unheard of. I think AR and VR has not quite reached its potential yet either. They've definitely done some cool things, but there's one, more regulations that have to be put on it, and two, I don't think the best uses for it have been completely found yet. I know some have. There's some really cool things where they do, like trying on clothes, for example. There's this one company that takes like a picture of your body when you walk in, and it creates a virtual dressing room for you. So you can see how the clothes will fit before you put them on. And so they've partnered with different sites to do that, which is a genius idea.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, but I know like right now that's not something that every single retail company has adapted yet. And I know that that will be something moving forward in the future will probably be super useful. So I definitely don't think that it's reached its peak yet. I think it's just emerging. There's a lot more uses we haven't thought of.
Absolutely. Wonderful answer. Chris, thank you so much for joining the live stream, sir. And Jay James said great response. Talk about your thoughts on Black Heights and this initiatives, Lauren.
Yeah, sure. So Black Heights, your company, your baby. I thought it was really cool when you had first told me about it on the plane, just as far as trying to get more Blacks and African Americans just into leadership positions. And I think it's not only cool for someone who wants to grow in her career, but also from the aspect of like just the type of impact this can have. I think the nice thing of having more African Americans in higher positions is that they can open the doors for people who come after them. And
Yep.
so when you have people who have traveled a route already, it makes going that same route a little bit easier. Everyone doesn't have to be a trailblazer. It's cool to be one, but everyone doesn't have to be one. Um, and so I think having this resource is like super useful and definitely needed. I also think it's a great way to help. I don't know, just give back, to like inspire, to share, to give hope, to change ideas of what's possible. Um, Sometimes we don't shoot for certain stars because we just don't see them in the sky, and
Exactly.
so yeah, I mean, I think it's an awesome opportunity. Definitely believe in sharing resources and sharing advice. It takes a village for sure. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I wouldn't have gotten through my degree without the people, without my support group. Like honestly, and they're some of my best friends now. I definitely wouldn't be where I am today just without having the right people around me supporting me, either just cheering me on, sharing resources, mentoring me, coaching me. Literally, when I was debating between CS or being IOE or an industrial engineer, I remember specifically two upperclassmen who looked at me and they were like, "Lauren, you're smart enough. You should do this." And there's not enough girls or Black women, so you're doing this. And I was like, okay. And that was the sell. It was just the fact that they had faith in me.
Right.
So I definitely think it's something that is necessary. One, from being able to help others down the line, and also just helping you get somewhere faster, or knowing that you can do something.
Absolutely. It's a path to success, and it helps people navigate their way to success. Absolutely. And I think one of the coolest things you said, Lauren, was it's giving back, and that's the biggest thing, right? It's giving back. And two more questions, and then we're going to answer some of the questions in the chat. So, with you working, being a full-time engineer, having some flexibility, you have a family, you have friends and things like that. How do you balance work, life, and family? And I like to ask all of my guests on here, because I think people have different ways of doing it. But how do you do it? How do you balance it all?
It's hard. It's hard because there's so many things that I love to do. Like, obviously, I'm trying to kill it at work, but also, like, I box, and I'm secretly, but kind of not secretly, trying to become like good enough to be an amateur boxer. But like, we'll see how that goes.
Cool.
We'll see how that goes. But I mean, like, I also work on like personal things, and like, I enjoy living life. I enjoy visiting friends. I love to be there for family. It's definitely difficult at times, but I think for me, well, I think the first thing that I've done is I've started to like go to sleep on time and wake up and start my day very early. Even though my day at work starts at 10, I'm probably up a lot earlier than then, working on my own stuff, taking care of business, being at home, writing. So that helps. I also try and do like a lot of personal checks, like how am I feeling? And I start to do that more. So if I'm ever feeling burnt out, then it's like, okay, well, let's just take a step back. Learning to say no is really important.
Oh,
Learning
that's a
to
good one.
prioritize.
Yep.
Yes, learning to say no is very slept on. I've had to say no to friends, to family, because I had to take care of myself. I mean, if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of others. And so, like, understanding that I have to become more selfish with my time is really important. Also, trying to figuring out if things are really worth my time. So there's sometimes where it's like, I might be working on a project and saying, I could do all this by myself. Is it really worth it for me to do all this by myself, or should I ask someone else to do something? Or is something that I want to do really necessary? Like, is this something that I need to do, or can it just wait? Or do I just not need this right now? I think that's another thing, is asking those questions. I also like to just schedule one day a month where I just don't talk to anybody. Like, seriously, I turn off my phone. I turn off like social media, computer, everything, and I just am. And it's not Sunday. It's usually a Saturday where I'll have like a full day to myself and just a day of solitude. And I find that's really helpful for me to like focus and balance. But I think part of it is just knowing how to prioritize what's most important at the time, and then knowing what to let go, and being okay with that. Like, you can't do everything all the time, and that's fine, but you have to also accept that. And so being able to say, I have to say no, but being okay with saying no, because you're more important, and your mental health and your balance is more important, is definitely.
No, I think those are some really good tactics that you use, Lauren. I've never personally heard of taking one day out of the month to completely turn off. I think that is amazing. I wish I was afforded the opportunity to do that. Unfortunately, I have kids and a wife now, but if I wasn't married, I think that is wonderful. Guys, if you're single, I think that is absolutely fantastic. Now, I gotta say, when I do travel, and let's just say I'm overseas, I do, take, an extra day or two to go sightseeing, to have some time by myself. But I don't I don't turn on technology, but I do think that's a need sometimes. I totally get it. I think that's a good advice, Lauren. I just learned
Yeah.
something. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Hey, well, I learned a lot tonight. You're
I
preaching.
do
You're
too. We're
preaching.
all learning. Great. Answer the right questions. Ask the right questions.
Power Grace says, is online courses in coding a good start?
Definitely. Definitely. And I think some places you can take online courses also provide a community of people
Mm-hmm.
where you can like ask questions to. I remember I had taken like some quick tutorial of General Assembly, and they have a community on Facebook as well. So online courses are definitely great. If so, you should try and see if they have like a complimentary online community or group on Facebook where people type in questions like, "How do you do this?" But I mean, for sure, go for the online courses if you have that
Awesome.
opportunity.
Awesome. And then last question we got from Mr. Anton Walker. He said, what ways do you recommend to get better at algorithms?
Yeah, those are difficult. um, I have a book that I'm looking at actually on my bookshelf called Cracking the Coding Interview, and it kind of reviews all of just the typical algorithms that you might be quizzed on during um, job interviews for software engineering. And so I remember when I was transitioning like from between jobs, I was going through that a lot. And so they gave just an example. And so I was doing problems from that book. Classes, honestly, I think are the best. For me, I really do enjoy asking questions and not to be obnoxious, but because I am I guess an audio learner. Like I need to hear something and then I need to like see it. And so I think understanding the type of learner you are will probably be the best way for me to give advice. So if you're someone who likes to see things, then YouTube does a lot of great tutorials of people literally on the whiteboard drawing out different things. And you can even see with like some of their sorting algorithms how they sort. Like they literally will walk you through the pattern and you'll see like, oh, so this is how bubble sort works. And you'll visually see like people swapping positions.
Mm.
If you're that type of learner, if you're an audio person or if you need to talk, then finding like a community class course or something, if it's just like a quick thing that you want to learn, I think that is super helpful because you can give that immediate like reinforcement. If you're someone who likes to read, there's textbooks about data structures and algorithms on Amazon. So I think it's understanding the type of learner you are or the best way you retain information and then going out and through different avenues because there's definitely those. And then practice. So
Yep.
you can
Yep.
see something and then see it. I mean, you can see something and then say like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But then if you actually try and implement it yourself, so actually writing out, insertion sort in a language, if you're learning a language, and then, or if you're learning a couple, trying to write that same algorithm in multiple languages, that's a great way to learn or get better or find projects to implement something that you've learned. But definitely put it into action after you learn it. Don't just write it down and say, oh, okay, like I theoretically know how to, but also then find questions that will quiz what you learn.
Mm. Mm. That's really good advice, Lauren. Um, so for anyone watching this video, somebody that comes across the video and wants to see what Miss Lauren Reeves has to say about asking questions, what are some takeaways that you want to leave them with after watching this video?
Yeah. Don't be fearful.
Mm.
I actually have this pillow behind me that says girls don't cry. Uh, we do cry, but I think it's kind of a small symbol of like just having your tough skin on. And so, like sometimes I will say like I'll ask a stupid question. Like it just happens. Like I don't people say there's no such thing as stupid questions. There are. There are. Like I mean there sometimes are. But that's okay.
Yep.
I would say just being unafraid in what you try and what you start and understanding that no one's an expert right away. So like when it comes to asking questions, knowing like, okay, I'm starting something new. It's not expected for me to be a genius right now or to be the best because I literally just started, and being okay with that. Um, Constantly learning is another big thing. So I mentioned, you know, when I was in school, my initial language was C++. Then when I started my first job, it was Java. Now I'm in another job and it's Python.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to joining these jobs, I didn't necessarily have a big need for the language that came after, but I made it a point to learn them. And outside of work, like I learn things too. Like I'm constantly reading. I read the New York Times every morning just because I like to know what's going on in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I also read TechCrunch to understand like what's happening within tech, or keeping up with like tech blogs. Um, like learning whatever you're in should be something that you're doing every single day.
Yep.
And then I think another takeaway would be, I would say sharing what you know of others. Try to teach. And because I think when you are able to teach something, that means that you truly know it. And you never know what actually is useful that you know that others might find like really important. So I think a lot of times we downplay some of the things we know, and we say like, oh well, I learned this thing, but it's not that big of a deal. Like who, I feel like everyone knows it. But I also know that one of the big things that I had to learn was like the Git workflow, and that happens with, excuse me, version control. So like as you code and you make changes, you push up those changes, and there's something called like Git or SVN that keeps track of the different revisions that you make so you can roll back.
Repository.
But when you work
SVN repository.
Yes. SVN, CVS, yes, whatever it could be a different thing depending on who you work for.
Yep.
But I thought that process wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, it was difficult for me to learn, but I just assumed, everyone knows it. But I also know that when an intern had started at my old job, she was having a lot of trouble with merge conflicts and like merging her work into the company's. And so I literally had taken a step where I was like, let's book a conference room and I'm just going to whiteboard the whole Git workflow for you. And so we went through what all the terminologies mean, like how it works, drew out diagrams, everything, let her ask questions, gave different scenarios. And so, yes, GitHub. And so when you are able to teach someone, that means one, you know it, and you probably had to prepare to make sure that you were able to teach it properly. And now if someone else knows it and they have questions that they might be able to ask you to improve what you know or to, teach others. And so I think being able to teach people what you think is great also because like it shows that you're knowledgeable in a subject. Like one of my goals at work is to present more. And so I personally, like as an engineering manager, sometimes I don't know like what I work on, if it's worth presenting or not. And if you think it is, I'm more than happy to, but you just have to tap me on the shoulder and say, Lauren, I think you should present this. And it's because I want people to know that I'm knowledgeable in this subject. So that's something too.
No, I think those are three wonderful takeaways. Don't be fearful. Ask questions, guys, And not only that, there's a process to this. When you come in somewhere, new or, have a couple years, you're not expected to be an expert at it right away. I can tell you that right now. I just moved into a sales organization and I'm 7 months in and no way am I close to being an expert. I had to ask tons of questions today on some mistakes that I made. And it's just the process, right? It is the process. Constant learning. I think that is very important. I think you said you hit the nail on the head. Every day should be, you should spend some time learning something new, whether that's reading the papers, whether that is, reading technology blogs, whether that is writing, whether that is speaking to people, right? Constant learning is certainly needed. And then last, you said, share your knowledge with others. I think when you share your knowledge with others, that helps you build a lot of confidence too, Lauren. And that's something that you didn't mention, but when you're able to teach somebody something, it helps you build a level of confidence to where you feel like you've mastered it, because teaching is the process to mastery, right? And I think that's very, very important. I This has been a wonderful interview, Lauren. Thank you so much for spending time on the Black Heights podcast. Guys in the chat, thank you so much for making this interactive. We had a lot of people in the chat tonight asking all kinds of questions. You guys must have saw the image. It was like, okay, what's about asking questions? So you decided to ask a lot of questions. So thank you all for joining this interactive chat in this interview with Lauren. Guys, if you like what you heard, please like the video. Please subscribe to the video on YouTube. Continue to support what we're doing. Lauren, for the folks who don't know you, and if they wanted to get a hold of you, how could they find you? You have a LinkedIn, you have an Instagram. How could they find you if they wanted to get a hold of you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you could feel free to find me on LinkedIn,
Yep.
Lauren Reeves. If you want like personal, professional questions, I'm in the process of trying to start just kind of like sharing more stuff about tech. And so you can see my very sarcastic side of my thoughts on Twitter
Yep.
at Lauren Amani. So LaurenAhmani. So that's there on Twitter or Instagram. So that's my personal life. But if you have professional questions, you guys add me on LinkedIn. Either is fine.
Awesome. Lauren, thank you so much for joining the podcast. I knew it was going to be a wonderful show. I knew I was going to learn a lot, and I know you were going to teach people a lot. Guys, thank you so much for joining the Black Heights podcast, the On the Journey podcast, and we will see you again next week. Thank you all so much.